It's about that time, baby, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go, here we go.
The Sinclair Show is on.
It is on.
Running with your friends, come on.
Come on, come
So
on.
it's a moment of the show tonight. Mailbag is tight. Sinclair is on the mic.
Once again, it's on. You're still troubled in your home. Got your tripping, don't know right from wrong. Send your letters to the show so we can talk you through. Get the answers to your questions because we speak that truth. Sometimes you doubt yourself, lost your health. Faith is on the fence, but you believe that Jesus knows your wealth. Keep it moving, spirit flowing, because we're here to provide someone to lean on when you're falling. Wednesday, 8 and 9, and it's on. Once again, it's on. You're listening to the only morning show when people at night. That's right. It is the Sinclair Show coming to you live and direct. And man, oh man, we got a show tonight talking about a good subject matter, if you will. But first, I want to thank all of you all who continue to send your mailbag questions, comments, thoughts, outlooks, or whatever you done got when you was minding somebody else's business. I want to thank all of y'all for coming on to that live. And you can continue to send your mailbag questions, comments, and everything else to Sinclair Talk at Outlook.com. We're going to continue to address these issues each night that we on the air to reach you, because you all are the valued listeners. And what does that mean if somebody is a valued listener? And that means without you all, there'll be no reason for there to be a me. So I just want to let y'all know that I can appreciate all that y'all bring to me, and how y'all keep me on my tippy toes, on my tippy paws, if you will. And so we're going to keep rocking with each other. And I just want to let y'all know that everything is all good in the hood, but we got a real good topic tonight. Some of y'all might be in your emotional feelings. Funny, I would use that as the topic, but hey, it is what it is. Who is that I see with my eye spy, with my little eyes? If it isn't Gwendolyn Lady Elegance Pritchard, she's hanging out in Rocket City, Alabama. That's what I'm talking about right there. How you doing, Lady Elegance? Glad to see you on the show tonight. And I want to just talk to y'all before we kick off and everything. And let me this one of them shows where I got to give a disclaimer, because it appears that whenever I get to conversing with you all about anything serious, that I got to give disclaimers, because some of y'all be ready to go off the deep end for no apparent reason. So let me clear up a few things in y'all mind tonight. As you read, if you got the little notification, it says tonight's podcast is about when emotions take the wheel. Oh my goodness. And listen, I be toiling with some of these deep conversations that I got to have with y'all, because I know some of y'all ain't built for it. Matter of fact, the mere fact that someone will even mention emotions and how it might impact you, some of y'all get in your feelings. Now, because there is a need for us to chit chat for a minute about how sometimes you can't find balance in your life, whether it's your professional life, your workplace, it could be your little love life or whatever it is, because you cannot balance your emotions with logic and connection to people. And I know. Some of y'all already ready, just ready to be on ghost status. But I feel the need to let y'all know, first and foremost, I don't care nothing about y'all being in y'all feelings. That really does not move me at all. But there's a reason why it doesn't. It doesn't move me because there is a greater issue in our communities today where we can't get real issues resolved. We can't get real dialogue when the thing that controls people the most is how they are responding and how they are feeling about something. So We're going to talk about it tonight, and we're going to see where we wind up, if you will. So we're going to talk about what happens when we live in our emotions and how can it quietly erode the connections, communications, and trust in relationships. And yes, ladies, because you are more predisposed to be emotional creatures, we're going to talk about how does you being in your feelings all the time impact your ability to be and have healthy relationships with men. Now, it is not that women are the only ones to be in their feelings, because they not. Because you got men that be in their feelings all the time too. It depends on what the subject matter is. As a matter of fact, I've been accused from time to time of being in my feelings. And all of us get in our feelings. But some of you all navigate your entire lives, your entire existence being in your feelings, and you wonder why it impacts your ability to have long-standing, healthy relationships. And so we're going to talk about it tonight. This is not, let me repeat, this is not about me or anyone else assessing that people should be emotionless. I ain't saying that at all. Because feelings and thoughtfulness and emotions can drive you to be supportive of others. It can drive you to being a very good person in general. The problem is when your emotions dictate every reaction, every conversation, every decision, you find yourself sabotaging the very relationships that you allege that you're trying to protect. Okay? So let us begin with that. There is a concept that exists that people who lead with emotion, people who allow emotion or emotional feelings to drive them all the time, go through such highs and lows that they have an imbalance in their regular days. So now think about this. Are emotions important? Absolutely. They're a part of what makes us human beings. Emotions set us aside from regular animals, if you will. Okay? They help us to connect. They help us to empathize. They help us to feel joy, to feel love, even feel a little heartbreak. But the hard truth is your feelings are valid, but your feelings are not facts. What's going on, Chanel Rawls? Let me say this again. Your feelings are valid and they're important in the scope of who you are, but feelings are not facts. And sometimes we get them confused. Sometimes many of you find it hard to have dialogue, whether it's with people in the street or people in your own home or whoever you're in a relationship with, because you stay in your feelings. I don't know why this. I don't know why that. I feel like this. Your feelings are emotions. Your feelings are not factual in basis, although they lead to a connection to your perception. I am emotionally like this, so I perceive the world like that, and I draw my decision making based on how I feel. Many of us were taught to trust our feelings. Above all else, trust your feelings. And when we make decisions based only on how we feel without factoring in logic, intent, or perspective, it can lead us to misread a situation and misjudge people. Some of y'all, I know that went over your head. So let me remix it. When you are using your feelings to be the primary or only factor in you making a decision, generally you are going to misjudge if you are not adding in logic, intent, and it will allow you to misread people in situations. All of us has been there. Some people will say, if I don't like somebody, you shouldn't be liking them in either. Now, just out of curiosity, what sense do that make? If a person never did anything to me negative, but you and that person had beef, you feel like if I'm down with you, I should dislike this person. And unless I have mitigating factors, things that are not feeling based, I could misjudge somebody. Y'all ain't even with me tonight because I'm talking about some of y'all. Let's say, let me give y'all an example. Let's say you text your partner, right? You don't get no response for an hour. Let's say you call your partner, but you don't get no response immediately. And within a few seconds, you go and call them or text them again, and you don't get a response. Your emotions begin to kick in. The first thing you think is, he or she must be ignoring me. The next thing you will attach to it, they see me calling, but they don't care that I'm calling. They see me texting, but they don't care that I'm texting. They don't even, I don't know what they doing. They must be doing something nefarious because they see me calling. Sometimes you'll even say, oh, you don't want to answer. You could not answer my call. You could not respond to my text because you was talking to another female. You was talking to another male. You will come up with a million scenarios. You are somewhere sitting in a corner, spiraling out of control. You have developed anger. Lacey Geary, what's going on, girl? Glad to see you. Look at my mama. Hey, mama. And y'all see Chanel Rose. So I want y'all to think about this. Somebody doesn't answer your phone call. Somebody doesn't respond to your text. You hit the ceiling. I know you see me. Some of y'all be talking as you text. I done did it before myself. I done sent people to text and I'd be like, now, if you just call me, I know you see me calling. But some of you all will draw on the deepest of emotion. You spiraling out of control. You hurt. You angry. So when you finally get a reply from your girl, your dude, your partner, whoever, whatever you want to call them, you already laced up with accusations and attitude. So now when that person finally responds, when that person finally answers the call, when that person finally texts you back, you are already so amped up because you was in your feelings. You didn't have any facts, but you was on go status that you out the gate on. Now you got them interrogation questions. So who was you talking to? Before they can answer, I know you saw me. If it wasn't a phone call, how many times I got to text you? You must have been talking to somebody else. That's why you couldn't reply. You'll even get other emotional things. I could have been on the side of the road. I could have been somewhere dying and you didn't even respond because you didn't care because you were so busy doing whatever you doing. Listen to your crazy self. You're crazy as all outdoors because you're in your feelings. You're crazy as you can get because you are emotional. You are emotional because someone did not respond in what you perceive to be a timely manner, although you had no clue, no idea of anything that could have been going on. You came to your own old conclusion. And at some point, while you sitting up here wilding out and acting the absolute fool, you allow him or her to get a word in. And after you done got through projecting your fear instead of communicating, after you done got through defending your hurt emotions instead of asking for clarity, after you done got through fighting for control and fostering a connection, all these things that took place, you find out, oh, I was outside and my phone was inside and I was taking the trash out. I was getting something out the car. I was talking to the neighbor. You could have been doing any of these things, but you and your psychotic and over emotional selves, can't nobody tell you nothing. So you done went through an array of emotions and you done been on 10. And men, it ain't just women. Let's keep it a stack. What Lacey say? Lacey said, I had a guy I talked to briefly tell me, you know, I almost died this weekend. I was dealing with a family issue, shaking my head. See, I ain't making this up. And men, it is not just women. I know some guys that'll go off the deep end. Some guys that done jumped in their vehicle. Some guys that'll roll to somebody's house. Some guys that, listen, I used to be crazy as all outdoors. Now, let me say this in clarity. When people do stuff to violate your trust, that's not the same thing as being in your feelings. If you violated my trust, then that means I might have turned emotional or crazy because I don't trust you. And that's for a different story. But I'm saying fundamentally, because we are overly emotional creatures, what we do is we always look to the worst and we're always amped up. And you sabotage your own ability to communicate with others, either professionally or personally, because you're always on 10. You always on go. And maybe one of y'all can answer this for me. I see y'all quiet tonight, so that must mean I'm hitting some buttons. But somebody tell me, just out of curiosity, why is it that when people are in their emotions, when people are in their feelings, we never find that they are thinking the best of anything? I called you, you must be cheating because you didn't answer. I called you or text you, you didn't answer. You must have been up in somebody's face. We never think somebody could have been doing something positive. Why is that? I'll wait. Ladies, y'all out here humming and hemming and hawing around. Can one of you ladies answer, why is it that when you're in your feelings, you're always thinking the worst instead of the best? Does it never cross your minds that maybe the person is doing something that they're supposed to be doing, and the time and point that you reached out was just a position or time that was inconvenient based on whatever they was doing? I'm just saying. Let's talk about the impact, since y'all don't want to provide any feedback. Men, generally speaking, are conditioned to process emotions differently than women. I'm not saying better or worse. I'm saying men, generally speaking, are conditioned to process emotions differently than women. They are often socialized to value logic, problem solving, and calm discussion. Hold on, let me see what Lacey said. Lacey said, that used to be me, but it's based off prior cheating. But now I think about that and I don't jump to conclusions. Listen to Lacey. Chanel said, people want to be right even at the expense of others. People are also products of their environment and lack of healing from their past. Absolutely. I agree with both of you ladies. Now, as we were saying, because men are generally speaking, and I use these terms because if I don't say generally speaking, and I don't want to make such a broad statement, because then we will get bogged down with people saying, oh, he's saying all men are good or all men are bad or all women are good or bad. That's not what I'm saying. We're talking in generalized terms. Generally speaking, men are conditioned to process emotions different. They are often socialized to value logic, problem solving, and calm discussion. So when faced with emotional reactivity, especially constant emotional reactivity, it often triggers one of three responses. Now, let me say this to you. Ladies, all I want you to do is think tonight. You ain't got to get into an argument with me because I might not, in your household, you might be the balanced person. So we're talking about generally speaking. But because men are generally more logic, problem solving thinkers, when faced with emotional reactivity from their partners, it naturally will trigger one of three general responses. One, it will cause men to generally withdraw, meaning he shuts down to avoid confrontation or escalation. Now, I don't know about all men, but even my mama, if she was up here on another microphone right now, she would tell you, even with her, when there are conversations that I don't necessarily want to have, I'll say, Mama, you know what? I got something to do. And I've done it so much, she'll be like, you know what? I knew you was going to say that anyway. Okay? Lacey said, and me and my boyfriend have a good relationship where we communicate effectively, so there's no room to jump to any conclusions. I don't know, Lacey. Lacey, one time you're going to have your boyfriend jump on so he can validate all these positive things. But if it is the case, I can appreciate that. All right? So I'm going to take ownership of me being the withdrawing type. Matter of fact, most people that know me tell you I thrive off shutting down because I don't personally have an opportunity or the emotional wherewithal to get into an argument about everything, because when you are overly stimulated by your emotion and your feelings, everything that someone says, you are looking and listening for the rebuttal because you want to express. Half the time it has nothing to do with what's being said. You want to be heard and felt in that moment. But most of the time, men have no desire to operate all day in the emotional space. Now, I know how that feels and sounds. It feels like I'm saying that women are bad because I'm not saying women are bad at all. I'm saying women, I'm trying to give you a nugget of knowledge that may help you to navigate with your man if he fits into these categories. The first of which is the withdrawer. I will put somebody on timeout. Hey, you know what? We need to table this discussion. As a matter of fact, maybe we need to have about 24, 48, 72, 96 hours where we just don't have any communication. I need some time for me to I don't want to have to talk about any until that I can be of, that I can do and talk right. Now, trust me when I tell you, I've heard many women say, I'm not going to bed with some negativity on my heart and mind, so we need to talk about it right now. And that leads to the second thing that normally happens when someone who is logic-minded problem solvers comes in contact with someone who is overly emotional or in that space at that moment. They become defensive. He feels blame or attacked, even if that wasn't your intent. Absolutely. Guilty. Now, I'm admitting to some of these things because I've done some of these things. I might even be that type of person today. I know I'm still a shut down type dude, no doubt. But ladies, I'm saying this, and you all have probably experienced it if you have an emotional man. When someone is always emotional and they want to force you into dialogue, you become defensive because you think everything that they are saying, they are blaming you for it. And sometimes the emotional person, it's not their intent to sound that way. They just don't recognize how to break having emotional conversation and begin to have logic end result type conversation. Then when you back people in the corner, because we're not just going to be gender based, when you back a man or a woman into a corner because you are overly emotional and everything is attached to your feelings, the third thing that they generally will begin to do is appeasement, meaning they're going to say what you want to hear to end the conversation, not because it's genuine. As a matter of fact, they'll say something like, you know what? You're right. Knowing John Brown well, they don't think you're right. But they already understand you're at such an emotional perspective that it won't matter if they try to present you with facts. You can't hear them because you're emotional. You only want to get a perspective across. Because remember what we said up front, you're no longer looking for factual information that might drive you to a different conclusion. You want to be right. So he's either going to withdraw or she's either going to withdraw, or they will become defensive, or a combination. Or the third thing they may do is just say, you know what, I'm going to let you be right about whatever you want to be right about. And again, I want you all to understand that there is some significance in the conversation about it. Consider this. Most people who are emotional will attach some level of guilt or blame to your perspective. They will tell you, oh, you don't ever take my side. If they ask you some value-based questions, you will say, so you're always trying to say I'm wrong. No. It's not that you're always wrong, but you absolutely could be always in your feelings. And we begin by saying people who are always in their feelings are generally the ones who find themselves missing out on critical informational pieces, and therefore they drive a conversation or a narrative or a conclusion that is not based in facts. So you could be wrong. And if you are in a friendship, a relationship, or whatever you want to call the ship with somebody, they should, if they already know that you are this type of person, they're supposed to ask you questions. Because they certainly can't tell you you're wrong, because can't nobody tell you you're wrong. And I am not speaking of when high intellectual people gather in the same forum and they're having open dialogue and challenging each other's knowledge about something. That's fine. That's not emotional. That is a group of highly intelligent people trying to get to a factual conclusion. That might be an argument, but that's not the same thing as someone only wanting you to catch their feelings about something. Have you ever wanted to talk to someone but hesitated because you knew that they'd overreact? Absolutely. I have had dialogue both in counseling and in my personal life where I will begin to say something and I'll stop. And I will stop because I can look at a person's body language or listen to some of the directions that the conversation is going. And if I know you're not able to receive it, I'm not even going to waste my energy because I know you can't receive it. So I'm going to avoid the communication, avoid the topic. I might even become emotionally distant because I can't talk to you if you're sitting around in your feelings. People who are generally, and I don't even be playing around with the zodiac signs and all that stuff, but I do believe that there are certain people who are naturally sensitive. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you like this. If you have siblings, more than just you, let's say it's 2 or 3 of you all or more, I bet if I were to ask anybody who has at least 2 other siblings that you could tell me which one of your siblings is the most sensitive. I bet you could. Like I could tell you all beyond any shadow of a doubt that I've got 2 sisters. All right. And speaking of, hey, Taya, how you doing? Well, people, I don't know if I need to tell this story, but nonetheless, I will. So I've got, as well as many of you, I've got 2 sisters. And they have different personalities. But one is certainly more sensitive than the other. All right. And I want y'all to think about what I'm saying. I did not say one is better or than the other, one is nicer than the other or whatever. I've got one that's very, very sensitive. And I got one that's she's a tad bit she a little rough around the edges. So she ain't gonna, okay, let me say it this way. I got 2 sisters, both are older than me. One is likely to start crying in a conversation. The other one likely to start fighting. Now, I'm not gonna tell you which one is which, because I be protecting the innocent. But I say those things because people who operate in emotions drive different outcomes. And so the conversation about people learning to manage their emotions, because it will impact you in your professional life, it'll impact you in your personal life. And so, and it will cause people who may very well care for you to become distant in how or what they engage with you about. If I am talking to my sibling who is the more sensitive one, I am very mindful of the terminology I use. You know, the one who is more sensitive, she would have to really, really do something for me to say something aggressive to her, because I'm always cognizant of her emotional state of mind. Okay? And she's always been sensitive. She'd probably be the type that she'd want to save a butterfly, or she, them type. It's not that it's bad. Everybody needs a overly protective, little soft-spoken smurf of a sibling. Now, you don't want to go to war with them, because they be over there trying to talk to the enemy. Can we all just get along? Now, my other sibling, with the more aggressive personality, I do not consider tonnage when I am talking to that sibling. Okay? The reason being is because that sibling is built for different things. It doesn't mean that my aggressive sibling doesn't have feelings, but my aggressive sibling is more likely to engage, frown a face up, talk a little reckless. Like my my more aggressive sibling is the type that if you say something that they don't agree with, you're going to get the verbal business. My more sensitive sibling will ask you a million questions and may have a teardrop falling and may get quiet, and she will make you feel bad that you asked the question too aggressively, because you can look at her body language and tell she's not really about that business. She don't really want no smoke. She wants to be heard. Now, when I'm using those examples, while I'm using my siblings, many of you are in relationships with people that are on one side of the spectrum or the other. And what does that mean? It is difficult to be unless you have a similar personality. And I want to get to this point because emotions impact relationships more than anything else. Because a person wants to be, if you go to work and you got to deal with people in the world, you do not want to have to tiptoe around something you said, because an emotional person is listening to everything with the intent to emotionally process. My second sibling, if I was to call her up and be like, man, these Negroes getting on my nerve, they always coming with the foolishness, I could go down a laundry list of stuff with her. And she liked it to say, you know what, I done had to deal with some of them too. I get sick and tired of them. We can have a whole conversation. I'm going to be able to decompress because she's going to be saying some of the same thing. Now, my first sibling, the more sensitive sibling, is probably, if she sees that it is bothering me too much, she might start crying and rubbing my shoulders and saying, I don't want my baby brother to feel like this. And again, everything has its values. I'm just saying to you that it plays a role in how you are able to communicate and operate effectively when in your prism and in your space. All right. And no, I am not asking or stating that people should be shutting down their emotions. All right. Let me be clear. It is not, this conversation that we're having tonight, it's not about you shutting down. It's about you managing your emotions with intent. All right. What does that mean? That means if somebody is having a regular conversation with you, you should be able to, if you feel yourself going down the proverbial rabbit hole and all of a sudden you start becoming overly sensitive and you start getting chest pains or whatever you do, whatever the highly sensitive people do, sometimes you need to take a breath during that conversation and ask yourself, not the other person anymore, what's going on? Glad to see you. Latiana Matthews, glad to see you. I need you to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way right now? Ladies, let me go ahead and give you a little extra to think about. When you are dealing with relationships, if you are a overly sensitive person, why do you always think that a person who is in your circle of acquaintance, be it from a relationship standpoint, friendship or other, why do you always feel like that person is coming for you? Why can't somebody, matter of fact, let me ask this question. Well, I'm getting these little side text messages. Oh, let's give a shout out to Latiana because today is her happy birthday. I ain't even know that. Happy birthday, Latiana. Now, let's not get tied up in her birthday, though, people. Listen, why is it that sensitive people always think nobody's on their side or somebody's coming for them? I'm asking y'all, if you are a sensitive person and you on the show right now, chime in. Why does it always feel to you all that someone is coming for you if they are asking you questions? Because that's what you need to be able to do. You are more than welcome, Latiana. And I'm saying this sincerely because while I counsel, I don't know that I've ever asked this question directly. So I'm really trying to understand, why do people who are highly sensitive or highly emotional, why do you always feel like if someone is asking you questions, and in many cases it may be to ascertain more information, to give you some advice, if you will, why do you always think they coming for you? Do you ever ask yourself, what am I really feeling in this moment? And that's a good question, because when your emotions rise, when your blood pressure rise, when you start feeling like you about to turn into the baby Incredible Hulk because somebody's talking to you and now you are in defense of your emotion and nobody but you knows why you are locked into emotion, what's going through your mind? And it's funny because I know at least 5 or 6 sensitive people up here right now, and ain't none of them said nothing. That's how I know that in some cases, Big Rod, what's going on, my dogs? Big Rod, we're talking about people who operate emotionally and in their feelings all the time and how it impacts relationships. Esther Shepherd, what's going on? Glad to see you on the show. And I know I told y'all Annie Moore was out there. So I'm asking the question, and not to put somebody on the spot, but to help educate in this dialogue, because we are saying tonight that people who operate on a frequency of being in their feelings and who are always emotional tend to view the world as coming against them. Let me see what Taya said. She said, sometimes I feel like I'm not letting the level, I think she meant I'm not getting the level of acceptance or understanding. Okay, so thank you, Taya. So what I want to know then is, what triggers sensitive people to feel like they're not getting or being understood? Because if you open dialogue with someone and they listen to whatever the conversation is, and let's say for the purposes of tonight's show that the conversation is somewhat emotional, or you're using the phrase, I feel like a lot. And when you say, Detective Pamela Black, glad to see you on the show. And when you say, I feel like I'm not getting the understanding, I'm going to choose that one. How does a person who listened to you and have questions about whatever you're sharing with them, how is it that they can ask the question or communicate with you without you feeling like, if somebody asks me to consider 5 things, it doesn't mean that they disagree with me. It means that they're listening to this and they're saying to themselves, this person is emotionally triggered by this thing that they're sharing with me, and I want to know if XYZ. Now, I can say this as a person who, I know that there are probably people out there that says, well, Sinclair, you've been guilty of that before too. And it's possible. It's possible because there may be times when, if I am presenting a factual piece of information, I am not interested all the time in someone playing quote unquote devil's advocate. Sometimes I just want to be heard. I don't even care. And you know what? I can say that I have been in relationships where I have said to a person, if all you want to do is me to listen, at the beginning of the conversation, just say to me, hey, babe, I got something I want to talk to you about. I don't really want no opinion. I just want an ear. And that will put me in a perspective where I can process that and be good with it. But if you don't tell a person whatever dialogue we are having is specifically geared toward me being able to vent and you hear me, I'm not asking for feedback, then they may ask you questions. Ty said, maybe it's not understanding, maybe it's emotional support. They can get my perspective even if they don't agree. Okay, Ty, cool. I can rock with you on that, but does the person know that that's what you're seeking? Because a lot of times men don't know. Men in general, and I'm not saying this is isolated only to them, a lot of times what men do is we hear a problem and we want to solve it. If you don't want a solution, then give us the heads up at the beginning of the conversation. Hey, babe, I want to get something off my chest that's been on there today, but I don't need you to solve it for me. I just want you to listen tonight. Most dudes is going to be happy to go there. Big Rod says sometimes tone, directness, and personal views can be a trigger. Could be, Big Rod. But Big Rod, let me ask a question. If a person is telling you something and you are asking them questions to try to gain clarity, why would the tone, see, and I believe Big Rod has made a very valid point, but people, I don't even want to say ladies, people, does a person want to talk to you if to have a conversation with you, I am forced to monitor my tone, I am forced to monitor what I might say, I am forced to do all this just to have a regular conversation with you? Why do I want to talk to you if I gotta go through this checklist with myself to be able to listen to you? Or can't you just tell me, I'm not talking to you for feedback, I'm talking to you for venting purposes? And I can shut up and I can tone out the side of my mind that forces me to critically think everything out. Because everybody ain't, but I'm a leader. It's in my DNA. It's what I am. So when, as a leader, if you come to me with something, I immediately am already turned on to, let me get them a solution. As a matter of fact, I would dare to say that there are people who are employed with me. I'm trying to say these things politically correct, but sometimes you say somebody work for you. You got some people out there that be in their feelings. I don't work for you. I work with you, whatever. But there are people who work with me that will say to me from time to time, or I've heard the rumblings that they believe I'm very short. Not in height, but in response. Hold on, Ty said, plus, as a woman, whenever we are direct and straightforward, some people take our tone to be aggressive, especially black women. You don't sound nice enough. You don't sound kind enough. Why you got to say it like that, etc. Ty, you can't have it both ways. You can't be the Ralph Tresvant of listen. You can't be sensitive and then be complaining that somebody think you too tough. I don't think anybody's accusing you of being too tough. I don't get that vibe from you. Big Rod said, if we know our audience, we already come with prerequisites on how we approach an individual. Correct. The problem, Big Rod, is this, is that if you approach me and you want me to listen to you and you don't want any feedback, and you already know I'm a feedback type of dude, I'm a solutions type of dude, if that ain't what you want, first and foremost, why you come to me, and if you came to me because you believe I'm a good listening ear, then activate the Sinclair. This is a listening session, not a solution session. It is incumbent on the person who is initiating the conversation, no matter what the feeling is to let the people who on the other side of it know what you expect from the onset. I don't want to hear nothing about, oh, you should know me by now. No, I shouldn't. Or maybe I do, and that's why I'm acting the way I'm acting. But if you want to increase your ability to have fruitful conversations and dialogue, you've got to find a way to be comfortable not thinking that everything someone says to you is negative. Matter of fact, how many of you have ever seen people, male or female, that you could be having a conversation with them and they'll get as smart-mouthed as they want to with you? And as soon as you say something like, well, who you think you're talking to? They'll say, oh, I can't say nothing to you, just forget it. No, but you had a different energy. And ladies, let me say this to you all, because I don't want y'all to say I am chauvinistic, but I'm trying to give y'all nuggets for dealing with your man. When you start talking and you start taking your voice up some octaves, or you start getting slick mouth or smart or whatever, you got to understand these are things in men world that normally are accompanied by conflict. So a lot of times your man might ask you, hey, who you talking to? Or they'll be like, you know I'm not no child, right? These are signs and responses to let you know that however you are disseminating information, you are crossing some boundaries that by nature, not nurture, by nature, a man is a warrior. Now, some of y'all got some sensitive warriors, but they still warriors. And if you are approaching a man and you are being, if you are being confrontational, or if you are only trying to, and I hate even saying men, because I know women who have the same emotional makeup. So let's just say people, if you are approaching a person who is a natural born leader, or a person who has a certain temperament, what triggers you to want to always go against whatever they say? Because that's not going to produce positive energy. It simply doesn't. And so communication is key, but getting out of your feelings. Being in your feelings can make you have responses that force conversation from going to be even keel to being combative, because you're in your feelings. And sometimes feelings will have you being hypocritical. Ladies, I can only speak from the male perspective other than what I do in terms of counseling. Let me tell you from a male perspective. Ladies, you all will be in your feelings about somebody talking to your man. It could be a regular conversation. And you will go hybrid on that dude in a minute. He might be talking to that lady and getting some advice about that lady on what might be something special for you. Now, that's a hypothetical. But some of y'all will be off the rack with it. But you the same ones that'll have a dude up in your face and say, oh, they ain't say nothing out the way. But you in your emotions, if a female say something to him. All I'm saying tonight, people, is this. The whole purpose of this show was to talk to people who are highly emotional, to get you to understand that there are some things about being emotional all the time that force individuals to pull back in their dialogue with you because they don't want to be fighting. Big Rod said it all boils down to that person. They can't take constructive criticism because criticism is factual. Uh-oh, y'all. Big Rod done hit a nerve right then. But he's telling the truth, and we said it earlier. Feelings are never based in facts. Emotions are not always based in facts. And so when a person is emotional and you're asking them a question, you don't even have to be challenging whether or not it's right or wrong. You may be asking them, did you consider this? But know when to bring those things up. That should not, and let me say this as a matter of principle, that should not be your response every time you are engaging with someone in your circle of acquaintances. You should not always be asking or playing the devil's advocate, because if that's the case, you are simply going against their dialogue and thought process all the time. It's okay. Measure the situations. Why can't your man or your woman say something to you without you? It doesn't always have to be an alternative theory. Sometimes they just having dialogue. Yeah, but did you think about this? Nope, I wasn't trying to think about it. This is what I was going through. I'm sharing it with you. And now you Dr. feeling me and telling me that I should have considered something in another person's mind. No. I only wanted to tell you what happened with me in this situation in my life, in my day. I didn't want you to ask me a million questions about it to try to draw an inference that refuted the way that or what I went through. And when you do those things, it makes people, as we said, men do this a lot. Men will shut down. Because if a man can't be heard, if a man can't lead, emotional people make men nervous because we don't want to have to always consider, as you all said, tone, the choice of word, XYZ. Sometimes you just want to be able to say something to a person and they not take it personal. They not take it as a referendum against them. If I spoke louder than what you wanted, you could have said, hey, babe, you could drop the temperature of it. You getting a little amped up. You don't have to come back and say, you know what? You act like you got a problem with me. No, I wasn't even in my feelings with you. I just wanted to have a conversation. And it was something that had occurred with me, and I was telling it to you. So, yeah, you should be able to recognize it different. You shouldn't always go to your feelings. And men, when you doing it, it ain't cute either. Listen, people, glad we had a little dialogue tonight. I want y'all to think about it. These are just some tidbits and nuggets that you all might can consider. Ask yourself this week, am I always in my feelings? Am I always going against what someone says? Am I always being not? And I don't want to leave you all with the phrase confrontational, because there are people who are in their feelings that are not confrontational. It just makes you uncomfortable because you don't know how to process somebody who's always in their feelings. So ask yourselves this week, people, do I need to consider why I feel the way I feel, and do I need to start working toward, let me come down off the emotional roller coasters all the time. Emotions can do great things for you, but it can also put you in a troublesome space personally and professionally. Good night, y'all.
It's about that time, baby, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Here we go. The Sinclair Show is on.
It is on.
Running